I'm Michael Nagler. You're interviewing me in my Berkeley office. I'm a professor, formerly of classics and comparative literature, and I started a program called Peace and Conflict Studies, and now in my retirement, that's where I'm teaching. So I'm teaching nonviolence and meditation and a seminar on the meaning of life. And I'm the author of The Search for a Nonviolent Future. This book that I wrote comes out of a 25-year experience of teaching a nonviolence course here at Berkeley. And all I did was, my course is for an audience of students who are very passionate about justice and oftentimes are in prison for some part of the semester. But my thought was that nonviolence is much bigger than that, and it's something that could be used by anyone. And it's something that could be used not just for social justice, but to resolve every problem that we're facing. And I still believe that to be literally true. So what I do in the book is I start with the individual and I say, what does it mean to be nonviolent? Is it a helpful, is it a healthy thing to do? Are you repressing your anger? And of course, I decide that you're not. Okay, once you've been nonviolent and you've helped yourself get out of a dilemma by that commitment, how does it affect the people immediately around you? Then the next step is, how could we take this energy, this force, and build it into social institutions, which we will find, if we look, are 95% of the time are based on what we call threat power, and not based on integrative power. And the institution that I picked to focus on there is criminal justice, which is a humongous problem in the U.S. Because, you know, we have 25% of the world's prison population is in this country. We have well over 2 million people who are warehoused in one way or another. And I really think if we don't solve this one, we're finished. And so I talk about how we would get from retributive justice, which isn't working, to restorative justice, and how we would have to change the culture so there's less criminalization in the first place. Being present, being in the here and now is one of the most important values and practices in my life for the last almost 40 years that I've been meditating. And the way my teacher used to explain it, we lose a lot of our vital capital because it's not here. We're anxious about the future or regretful about the past, and that's, to use an old Sanskrit term, that means that part of our prana, or our vital energy, is not there in the present. So partly with me it's the meditation practice, partly it's using a mantra during the day, you know, spiritual formula that we repeat whenever we can, and partly it's just the deliberate effort to be mindful and pull my mind back whenever it's running off into the future. I set aside some time for planning, and I set aside some time for looking over recent past occurrences to see where I could have improved. But after that time, I try not to let my mind run off into the future or into the past, but to be with whomever I'm with and on whatever I'm at. Being authentic, again, is extremely important for me. It's probably not something that I work at quite so directly. I think it comes from wanting to be aware of the needs of others and not be you know, obsessed with my own welfare and getting my own way. I think it's a question of developing an instinct for what are really one's deeper commitments and deeper values and deeper beliefs. And I know that one way that this can work is if we feel hostile towards someone, we sometimes think that we have to act out of that hostility because that's our authentic self. But I deeply believe that that is not our authentic self. Our authentic self is always loving and always compassionate and always calm and always wise. And we happen not to be aware of our authentic self at that moment. So oddly enough, we can put on an act and pretend to be what we really are. And eventually, we do this often enough, what we really are becomes more and more spontaneous. Now, I think this is a critical value and critical practice for the modern age, because two great mystical figures, in fact, more than two, whom I admire tremendously, Gandhi being one of them, said that the dharma, if you will, of the modern age, the one thing that we need to hold on to for all we're worth, is truth. And due to the virtualization of reality of generation of people who've grown up watching television, we've never been further from a grasp of the truth. So being authentic and being who we really are, but also having the faith to know that we really are a very positive and creative being is just critical. If we don't do that, we will never recover from the modern disaster.